Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars with my good friend Justin Bell. I can't wait to get going with you. Of course, your father was my very first guest. Justin, LeMans in the rain. Can we start there?
It almost finished there too.
Maybe we'll put it at the end.
No. It was interesting actually. Le Mans, a race I've been to with Dad since. I was 4 months old the first time I went to Le Mans, and in 1968, and so it's a massive part of our life. And when I started racing there, my first real Le Mans was in 1990 and we did it in a 962 Porsche, Dad, Tiffany Dell, and myself. And that was pissing with rain. That was, and I'd never driven a big prototype before. Flying down the Mulsanne, I think we were doing 226 miles an hour in the rain. I remember asking Dad, do we lift off? What do we do here? I'd only been racing a few years. And he said, no, wide open. But the trouble was when you got behind another car, your windshield would go white. Like, imagine driving down I-95 to 405, whichever horrific highway you choose in this country. It just, the windshield would go solid white, like it was snowing. And so I remember looking out the side window at the grass and the barricade and the, the edge of the road to know where I was. And
oh my God,
it was quite extraordinary, as well as not trying to hit the car in front. So, big eyes wide open moments. And then when I went back we finished the race, but not super well. But then when I went back in 95 with Dad and we were in the Harris and McLaren, that was difficult conditions, to say the least, with the pressure of being with him, with the pressure of being in a car that could win the race. And I didn't overly sort of impress myself or anyone in the hard rain in the middle of the night. I was just overwhelmed, to be honest. And but I did remember thinking, I had a moment. JJ Leto went past me in the rain over the Mulsanne hump before the last corner there on the Mulsanne straight. And they were on Michelin's, we were on Goodyear's, and seriously, they weren't as good, our tires. And I remember locking up, trying to control it. If live TV, my dad's, everybody. McLaren, Harrods. I'm about to be the most unpopular 24-year-old in history, and 25 maybe. And when actually round, instead of you make a decision in racing. It's better to lose a few seconds than go off in the gravel, right, and lose a lot. So I just kind of went straight and turned it around by the roundabout, and the gendarme was literally looking at me, going, "Why are you trying to get on the track?" And I was, it was a surreal moment where he hadn't seen me go off. He'd just seen me trying to regain my position and thought, for an instant that I wasn't actually a race car, which was a bit stupid because I was covered in, racing stickers and stuff. But I remember that being quite an interesting moment. But the reason I think the story is important was in the middle of the night, Dad getting in the car. I remember I got out. As I get out, I put him in the car. And I remember thinking that transition of, it's like a legacy thing. It's like a role reversal. 1 minute he was my father, 1 minute he was a racing driver, 1 minute I was his son, 1 minute I was a racing driver. And we, all through the race, the same as it had in 1990, there was this ebb and flow of relationship status, depending on what we were doing. The fear in his eyes when I headed out to drive in the night, the look of worry, I remember, was more off-putting to me, than anything else. That we've all.
That's a father. That's not just a teammate look.
That's as a father. And there's that thing. We've all done it with our kids, and the kid, your boy or girl, looks at you in the eye and goes, "It'll be all right, Dad, right?" And you go, "Yeah, it should be fine." But imagine the look on his eyes was, "Yeah, if you don't die, it'll be good." That was the look in his eyes. So definitely a memorable moments that we've had together, and we did Daytona together, and we've done a lot. But yeah, racing in the rain with him reminded me of quite what a beast he really is as a driver.
Let's back up a little. You're driving, there's mist on the windshield, you can't see a thing, you're looking out the side window to see the collar, the grass, to see where you are. You don't know where you are, like legit, you don't know where you are in relation to the car in front of you, like you could really
well,
drive
legit, you don't know if he's 300 feet in front or 100 feet in front. You know, as the intensity of the white on your windscreen gets more formidable and it blacks out everything, whites everything out, you realize you're closer.
And what speed? This is at low 200s?
Low 200s, yeah. Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Got it. So is it because you moved the line in the sand from driving young and being around it and then moving the line and moving the line that you could even be okay with it? Or maybe you weren't okay with it, you were just able to deal with it? Or are you does that make you a daredevil in general, adrenaline freak in general?
That's a good question. And I think that when you're in a sport and you're coming up through the ranks, you'll do whatever it takes to be good at it. You don't, I mean, again, using other sports, really? You're going to have that 300-pound guy trying to, and you're the little skinny guys about to grab the ball, and you got 5 or 6 of these big bastards running towards you. Doesn't, even when you're 14, I imagine they look pretty big, you know? And now you look back as a 50-year-old and go, that was stupid. Why would I play football? You know, it's the same in racing. I still drive incredibly fast on a racetrack. I just don't want to do it in the same way I did before and take those same risks. The risks really come from pushing that last 5-10%. You have to do it if you want to do it, if you want to be good at the sport. But you also have a confidence about you. There's a beautiful immortality about youth. We all know that's why soldiers are between 18 and 25, right? I mean, and isn't our male brain's sense of self-preservation, I don't think kicks in until we're 24, 25. I mean, just think about the havoc that we wreak on the world before our brains evolve. But it's a great time to do something dangerous or go to war, right? Because you don't know different. I think that's what it was like. I raced motocross a lot of my teenage years. I definitely wasn't a daredevil, but I was definitely not afraid. People, I think someone once said to me, race drivers have a death wish. And I said, well, actually, I think they have a life wish. I think they have a desire to experience life absolutely on the edge. To live it in its purest form. And so to answer your question, everyone around me was doing it. I was doing it. My dad was doing it. I didn't think about the danger elements. I don't think about the danger elements now in the same way, but I think about the consequences for, things going wrong a lot more than I did then. But, that fits into, I talked to my son about it. He was doing child acting, and now he's got into a big military college, the Citadel. He wants to be an Army Ranger. And everyone around
Congratulations.
Thank you. Everyone around, he's just finishing high school now. Everyone around him is going, why, you aren't you worried about him getting killed? And I go, do you know what? I'm more worried about him living an unfulfilled life. I'm more worried about him living a life where he hasn't experienced the thrill of adrenaline and risk. And I really do believe that, that's what separates anybody in their life who's done something either for work or pleasure that pushes those boundaries. Because if you've never felt that fear when it can go wrong, how do you really appreciate all the things that go right? And I think it's a great thing to have risked. I mean, obviously, risked and survived is the best option.
There's a movie that the movie wasn't notable to me. I don't particularly love the movie. I don't quote it like crazy, but it had a great line called Clockers. And one of the actors said the only thing worse than dying is not living.
Mm. Race drivers now, look at the difference between my dad's era and my era. Well, I've lost people along the route that have died.
Oh, but in your dad's early days, the amount of guys that died, oh my God.
They were dropping like flies. I mean, they would, and the biggest names in the sport, it's not just like small names. It was Graham Hill, Pedro Rodriguez, Joe Siffert. I mean, massive, Francois Sever, these big time stars.
Your dad was telling me about that. I mean, in the early days, it was like the exception to live.
Yeah.
I don't think you had like an odds of dying. I think you had an odds of living early on.
Yeah, imagine being the wife and kids sitting at home. We grew up with that. And I actually interviewed Brian Redman the other day, and as he said, it was just horrific. You'd be at a funeral with everybody. But that was a great side of it. Great side of it. Not a great side of it. That was a great, vivid memory. Wrong, I'll take the great out. It was a vivid memory about when this friend of ours, Paul Warwick, died. Derek Warwick, his brother was in Formula One. Paul was destined for Formula One. We were both sponsored by Camel cigarettes. And isn't that great? 18-year-old sponsored by Camel cigarettes. Those were the good old days when I would go to bars as a 19-year-old doing promotions for RJ Reynolds, giving out 20 packs of cigarettes, in crowded bars, at racetracks. Think about that. Wow, not now. But, Paul died, got killed at Alton Park in England. And then we all went to the funeral in London. All the drivers there, David Bram, everybody, all my friends. And we're like, emotionally, but obviously broken by watching this. And then we're like, it stopped and it ended. And we're like, see you on Saturday at the track. Let's do it again. And that's what you do.
Right.
I was sponsored by Camel. Mika Hacken and Alan McNeish were sponsored by Marlboro. We were all young kids. They had a junior ladder to get you to Formula One. And, it's when the tobacco companies could still spend money,
That's interesting. So are we ready to transition a little, talk about the VIPER years?
Yeah, I think so, because if there was a heyday in my life, in my racing life, it was definitely that. Came off the back of 95, the third place at LeMans with Dad and Andy Wallace. And my great buddy, James Guess, who actually was like a manager for me, we childhood friends, he somehow got me into this VIPER. And he got a test for me with the Eureka team, who are still very much involved in racing. And Chrysler Corporation were doing a global attack, really, on sports car racing. And the VIPER was this thunderous V10, everybody, obnoxious car, which really was a bit polarizing, but it was the perfect platform for them to turn into a full-blooded race car. Now, our car was nothing like the road car. I mean, it was super sophisticated and mind-blowingly fast. But it was definitely a great experience. We traveled the world. I mean, I got to tell Jeff, it was, imagine so this was 96, I'm just turning, not even 30, 28 years old. And you're suddenly racing in Japan and testing at Paul Ricard, Le Castellet in France, and, being part of this American, as the Brit, token Brit, being part of this American effort. It was like it was like landing on the on the beaches of Normandy. They came in hard. The Americans really wanted to make a presence felt against Porsche and everyone else. So it was just spectacular racing at Daytona and Sebring and Le Mans. And the first year, I actually won the championship in a rather bizarre way, and that was a full-blown FIA championship. But it was kind of a bizarre one because my car was not supposed to win, really. I mean, it was not supposed not to win, but I was the second car. They had Olivier Beretta and Philippe Gasher in the first car, and I won't deny that they were probably quicker than me. But I kept on having different teammates as the Hugh Descharnac, who ran the team, would sort of try and mitigate my run on the championship, I think, by changing my teammates. And I had some brilliant teammates. But of course, if they won, I finished second. if they broke down or crashed, which unfortunately happened to them through bad luck quite a bit, I'd win. So I got to the end of the year, came to Laguna Seca in California, and I had to beat the Porsche to win the race, to win the championship. But it was not about the Drivers' Championship, it was about the World Championship. So every effort was made for me to do well in that race, and so I won the first championship for Chrysler, which was great. And the next year we won Le Mans, and just basically 5 years of domination that I wish everyone could experience, because it just couldn't have been better.
Well, I mean, how many people on Earth can experience something like that? I mean,
not
many.
Not many, and not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah, but it was an interesting phase for many reasons. And then at the end of that period, some great stories during that. Racing in Japan, all these young guys. I mean, just think about being young guys and I'd like to say and girls, but there weren't any really racing.
Right.
But there were girls all around. So we would travel, and there was, in Japan, causing havoc, going to Le Mans, ending up in a nunnery with all these girls in the middle of Le Mans. I mean, getting thrown out by the Mother Superior. I mean, I don't even know what we did, but it was joyous.
Any chance of digging deeper into that story?
Well, that was an interesting one. We were in Le Mans. We were about to do the driver's parade. I don't think it was a nunnery, but the girls were not allowed to have visitors. We knew that. We'd seen them. And so one of the drivers climbed up the trellis outside this building, which then meant most of us followed him. And we were inside, only to be greeted by the screams. I was halfway up when I heard the screams of the matron in the place. So as the other drivers emptied out the front door, because we were racing for a manufacturer, we're supposed to be well behaved, but there is something you can't help. You can't arrest the libido of 6 hot-blooded international young drivers. So that was very funny, only to be topped somewhat by we went to Japan, and we're in Fuji, and there's a very famous bar in the middle of the track, and everyone goes there after the race. And there were some beautiful Japanese promotional girls, called them umbrella girls, And
Yep.
Guys, this was before it all got banned, so you can't hold it against me. This was the way life was. And everyone was having a good time. One of my teammates, who shall remain nameless, was he was short, but his ego was not. And we ended up finding ourselves in this, it was so Japanese, tatami floor matting, little shoji screens everywhere. I mean, we were in their sort of dormitory. God, we were, everything was just like we were trying to drink and, trying to convince these girls that, it was great for Anglo-Japanese relations if we had relations. But we weren't really doing that.
Right.
So we weren't convincing them at all. And the nameless driver disappeared for a minute. Next thing, he came back in the room, stark bullet naked. And let's just say what he lacked in height, he had definitely been blessed elsewhere, which totally shocked these beautiful little Japanese girls. And while we'd all been trying to keep quiet, it was a mix of me and the others going, "Put your clothes back on," to the girls screaming to this. And then we really did meet this it's not a dojo, is it? The male version, but the head of this dojo kind of thing, this enormous Japanese woman suddenly burst through the door. You've never seen terror. Forget Le Mans, forget the rain, nothing. Terror at the thought of being squashed under breast, probably, of this terrifying Sue.
This is gold.
Like woman. And we, anyway, that was it. We got into trouble. We did get into a bit of trouble for that, actually, but not like legal trouble. But let's just say, no, the rumors got around that we'd done that, and no one admitted to it. But so fun times, and why wouldn't they be fun times? I mean, you look at it you look at my dad's era, and they lived in, I mean, that was pre-social media, but you look at social, what social media's done. God, I'd hate to be a famous athlete, musician, actor these days, because people are recording what you do the whole time. We lived in that sort of slightly just post-dark ages, pre-electricity era. That's what it felt like. But yeah, funny times, right?
So now, have you ever told this story on any media or to any news outlet?
This could be
Maybe
first time
one not as large as mine.
Could be the first time that this story is.
We have an exclusive on Jeff Stearns.
Yes, you do. You have an exclusive because no one cares about what we really did back then now. And we're kind of weirdly proud of it. I mean, I think it's just, I worry for the young athletes of today with the pressure, with the performance, with the everything. I'm not saying it's about running around chasing girls or boys, whatever your thing is, but it's sort of, there's a vitality, there's a danger, right? There's a connection to it's going through history. I'm sure the gladiators the night before they went for a fight were probably pretty lusty, right? I'm sure that, before battle, the local maidens were more than happy to make things right. But I remember Sterling Moss saying to me one time, very famous driver, obviously, and we were very all good family friends. I asked him about that, and he said, chap, well, when one was in the bar after qualifying for the race the next day, or if you went in after the race and you still had your suit on, he said it did attract the ladies. There was, and he said he compared it to, the effect it had on said young ladies to being a fighter pilot in the war. When you would, World War II, you'd sit in the local pub and you'd be like, I'm going on a mission tomorrow and I might not return. So, we should make my last night on Earth worthwhile. Of course, 9 times out of 10, you might make it back the next day, in which case the girl was looking at you like, and you're like, well, I mean, I lived. So it was kind of funny times, but I don't know. I mean, it's good in a way. It's good in a way that I don't know, it's changed, I guess. But I do think we like to, in our, I don't know, this weird quest to domesticate mankind, I think we still forget that underlying everything is this, what makes us go fast, what's to make us work hard, whether you're a man or a woman. I think it's, there's a lot of energy and thrill to being at the top of your game. And I think, that's why we see famous people do stupid things.
So I don't even know if I bleep myself on these recordings. Once in a while, it'll slip out, but we have a note here. How I never said fuck on TV.
It's true, actually.
On live TV.
Live TV. It's funny. That's a funny note because I was just thinking when you asked me some things to talk about, it's why do TV when you've been racing cars, and it's quite a natural thing to say you're going to go into broadcasting. I got into it because I was a good interviewee, to be honest. They like talking to me, speed channels. So they're like, oh, go to Justin. He's full of shit. He'll tell you stuff.
Well, handsome and articulate. I mean, what do you want? I mean, you got one of those problems where people look at you and they think he's so good looking. How could he be smart?
Well, you know what? I wish that was the case. But they, thank you. But they, so I started the TV thing. They asked me, I got the opportunity to do it. And it was just, I tell you what, it was the only thing I'd done, live TV, that matched the rush of racing a car. That when they're counting down in your 3, 2, 1, you're live from the grid at Le Mans. I'm hosting the whole open to, Speed Channel or Fox Sports main broadcast from Le Mans. I'm live. There's a 2-second delay. There's nothing I can do if I mess it up. And I used to love that. And then when I do these became slightly infamous, these fan walkabouts in the fan zone, I go up in the middle of the night and everyone's totally drunk out of their skulls up there. And there's British and Danish and Scottish and French and everybody. And I would be up there doing a live hit for like 3 minutes in the middle of the night, or not quite in the middle of the night, let's say 11, 12 o'clock. Enough lubrication up there to make it fun. And there were always some fun moments, whether it's, I remember one time, because you're always dealing with a range issue up there, so I had to stay sort of in line of sight with the main tower, which was about 300 feet up on a pole, repeater. And so I could get all the way into the fan zone by the bars. And I'd walk through and they're throwing champagne corks at me. And I'd always go up to people. And imagine there's a group of English people, French guys, especially the English were the worst. I'd go up and I'd say, guys, listen. And that's obviously, I'm wearing a Speed Channel race suit, and there's a big camera with a light, and I go, listen, I'm about to go live, so please don't. Guys, when I come up to you, just don't say fuck, right? It's on live on air. So immediately they'll be they start swearing all they can. But weirdly enough, when I went back with the camera, they wouldn't swear because it's so funny. People, it's like guys that can tell a joke in a bar as opposed to, a joke on camera. There's two different skills. And so I had the best times, but I had people moon me. I didn't know it. I heard my producer and my co-host in America howling with laughter. And so I turned around, this guy's got his pants down behind. I mean, it was like this wonderful chaos. My producer once said, it was the best 3 minutes and the worst 3 minutes of his TV year because, both of us could get fired. But it was true about the swearing thing because like a lot of British people, we love swearing, but which is, I know, a sign of ignorance and a sign of lack of education, I think, or vocabulary. But sometimes there's nothing better. But I used to get away with a lot more than the American guys. I'd sometimes say, "Oh, it's bloody cold out here," and nothing would come back from my producer through my ear. Whereas if my co-hosts, the American guys, tried to say it, they'd say, "Oh, it's bloody hot out here." They get reprimanded by the producer because, hey, you shouldn't swear, and they always thought that was so unfair. How did I get away with it? But you see, the British accent thing means we can be like impolite, and still people think we're charming, which is desperately unfair and unwarranted. But it happens. So I always spent my entire career as Tommy Kendall, who's my co-host on the talk show. A brilliant guy, a driver, and obviously TV host. Now, he said if you don't do TV with an eye to being just a little bit fired every day, every broadcast, then you're not doing it right. You're playing it too safe.
Well, it's funny when you talk about with the accent, everything's charming. It's true, by the way. I told Derek a saying that my dad said to my brother and I our whole life growing up. He says, to make it in business, act British, but think Yiddish.
I actually love that. I might have to borrow that phrase.
I've been hearing that my whole life, really. I mean, I can imagine 4, 5, 6 him saying that. And so, what does that mean, right? Like, and especially when I was running the exotic car deals about how to act with a client. So, I mean, we, of course, act British. Now, I'm not going to do an accent. And, but of course, a British person can say anything, get away. It all sounds wonderful, right? You could read the white pages, read the phone book. It's going to sound great. But acting British is just coming across with the great manners, right? Being a gentleman, right? Or at least how we think, us Yanks.
Pretty good advice. So I'll ask you
British, think Yiddish.
Yeah, so I love that. So what do you think right now about the extraordinary car market that we're seeing out there? I mean, a friend of mine, he bought a Carrera GT he bought it 1.6, 10 days later sold it for 1.9. I mean, things like that. What is going on?
Yeah, unfortunately, he didn't wait long enough, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm a little afraid of all of it.
Okay.
So, my day job, I'm VP of sales for a chat software and consulting company to car dealers. So I have about 600 and some odd dealers around the world that I deal with, mainly U.S. and Canada. So I'm in these conversations all the time. So, of course, the chip shortage. We have a little bit of inflation. The used car went crazy because you could have it now.
Yeah.
So that's inventory now. Used car values, not Carrera GT stuff, but just pick your car, run-of-the-mill car, Toyota, Chevrolet, Mercedes, whatever. Wholesale auction numbers, same car, average them all in, are nearly $6,000 higher than they were a year and a half ago. For the same year car, I'm not just talking about auction results. I'm saying the same car went up $6,000, same year car. But to add to that equation, it's supposed to be a melting ice cube. It's supposed to be a depreciating item. I don't mean the rare short supply Carrera GT that would probably, I mean, not maybe in that short period of time, but a Carrera GT or anything with limited supply is always going to go up. But a Camry, where there's 9 jillion of them to be exact. Anyway, so you take something that should be 2, 3, 4, 5 grand less that went up 5, 6 G's. It's because you can have it now. So I don't know if the manufacturers and dealers, dealers have never made more in their life than they have in the last year, even though their volume is down because 5 grand over window, 10 grand over window, 20 grand over, whatever it is. And customers saying, yes, thank you. In the bank, can I get one? That's the question. Can I get one? So now I was actually talking to a buddy of mine at a dealership that I was taking my car into service to a couple of days ago. So I called him on the way. And I said, my lease is almost up, but I really don't want to get anything now because I know the manufacturer isn't incentivizing in any way, because why would they if there's no supply? And I tend to gravitate towards the vehicle that's got the good lease because I understand it. Mm-hmm. And he goes, you're right. Nothing's got a deal because we don't have anything. And why would they? But if you want to get rid of your car, you might make 6, 7 grand instead of turning in the lease. I have a month to go. So, but now what? I need a car.
Yeah.
So now what? So I said, what do you think happens when the chip supply comes back? Or do you think that it's fine and the manufacturers are just using this to get people used to ordering, used to a different model? Because inventorying cars is very expensive for dealers, of course, and building cars that sit is very expensive for manufacturers, not so much that they're dealing with the financing, because the dealer, once they take it, deals with the financing. But if dealers have heavy supply, the manufacturers spend massive amounts of money on incentives, whether it be rebate, low interest rates, incentivized leases. Massive, massive money. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. But I do know there are square miles of cars built undelivered.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I'm sure.
I know that. Built and undelivered, waiting for their chip. So will the manufacturer meter them in? But then there's a lot of moving parts in the car business, because now you've got unions that, unless they're partnered in, and it's often adversarial, with the factory, they just want all they can get. I'm not saying it makes them bad people. It's just their position. And the manufacturer might say, well, we want to cut a shift out of production to slow down the supply so that we can start metering in all these cars that are already built. And then the union will say, pay our guys for half the shift anyway, even if they're not going to work. Things like that can go on.
What about distribution? Right now you can't get a container in. So that's going to...
Well, you're talking. Yeah, those are imports. So
I know for American-built cars could still do well for a while, but I think the imports, which of course is a huge sector here too, you can't get them in on a ship right now because you're in the city of Long Beach or San Francisco or Miami. You're going to sit there for 3 months. So I think you're going to see that's going to have a really interesting extended life to the premium on foreign brands, I think.
They're not going to sit out there off the coast of Florida because we have DeSantis.
Okay, that's what'll happen.
Yes,
It's
I'm one
just
of
in
those.
It's just in my state. Yeah.
Yes, I'm one of those.
No, it's just my girlfriend lives down in Huntington Beach, and you could just see them lined up. There must be 80 ships out there. 80
That's
ships
incredible.
out there. You can only process like 12 a week, and they get 15 more a week around.
Well, that's a different problem. So one is, can we make a car deliverable because it's missing this component? And then another one is can we bring in Newport Beach, New Jersey, Port of New Jersey. I can't think of the anyway. The city, Florida is maybe Jacksonville, but Florida it wasn't really much of the port for bringing in cars.
It might be
It's North Carolina, New Jersey, and then California. But anyway, that's another problem altogether. And even if they can get them off the boat, I don't know if they're shipping them not finished or finished.
Yeah,
like when
the dealer doesn't want them on his floor plan, does he? Dealer's going to say, you can hold on to those as long as you want them. Because I don't want a car I cannot sell.
No. Well, what normally happens in that kind of relation, like, for example, Volkswagen, when they had their little diesel mistake.
Yeah.
When everything's recalled, or I'm sorry, not for sale, forgive me.
Yeah.
Then normally the manufacturer's got to pay the flooring.
Oh, they'll carry it. Okay. All right.
If you've got unsellable, yeah. No, that's another.
What a crazy! I mean, we forget, don't we? We forget the scale of the numbers we're talking about. The sheer billions involved. It's to nearly all of us. It's incomprehensible.
The GNP, right? So I have a buddy that actually texting me during this. I didn't look, but I see who it is. Who's the GM of a new Honda store. Twice as big as the one that he was running across the street. So they got a big property, double the size, blah, blah, blah. But from a timing standpoint, and probably small Honda compared to California, because California is a Honda state, no doubt. But he was doing, and again, we're Palm Harbor, Florida, so we're like Mayberry compared to what you have out there, or in the major metros here in Florida. We're nothing like Miami and Clearwater. You probably know that. So he was doing 80 new Honda, and his requirement at the new facility, I'm sorry, he was doing 150 new. His requirement at the new facility will be 300.
Ooh.
And he's got 35 cars a month. I'm talking about a month. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So he has a facility like with the indoor parking garage, clean inventory, elevator, all of that stuff. And he has 35 cars. He just has them all in the front row.
Which, according to that, he should sell every 3 days, one of those, right? I mean,
well, he thinks he's going to hit 130, 140.
Wow. Inventorying
30 something at any.
Isn't that amazing?
So it's very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
It's very efficient. It really, I mean, if you could sell anything like that, the throughput is beautiful and very efficient, just in time and all of that business. But really, in that case, from an overhead standpoint, he could have done it with a property half the size of the one he came from, let alone the mausoleum.
Unbelievable.
That he has now.
Wow.
So, but I think we're paying the price of supply. We're paying the price of shipping, like you mentioned, a part, with the chips, and then, a little bit of inflation piece. And I think we're paying the price of stimulus money. I think the rug's going to be pulled out on that. I mean, the amount of money that we printed compared to in all time up till now in the United States, and I'm sure other countries too.
Wow.
So
I love talking about it, but it makes me realize that if you get paid to go around in circles or get paid to talk, it's a lot better than having to deal with all that shit.
Yes. God bless you. I'm not getting paid for this.
I was waiting for my Venmo. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, God forbid I get enough traffic to get like a $3.88 AdSense on YouTube or something. We'll get there. That's actually, I was counting on me giving you this recording and you doing a few billboards or something. Or maybe you could do some direct mail.
Maybe social posts. Yeah. But it is true. It's so frustrating. So I mean, fast forwarding now to what I do now, which was, Tommy Kendall, Jason Jacobson, who came from NASCAR, he was our producer at IMSA. We started our own show called The Talk Show, TORQUE. Yep. All the IMSA races, that's how I met Brett. Jason and Brett worked together, so Brett was a formative part of our first year. And, we all had so much fun. Sponsored by Michelin, big sponsorship. We rocked the world the first year. And then 2020 happened, which, I mean, it's probably, I liken 2020, when the COVID thing kicked off and the lockdown to a bit, probably like when everyone had the plague or, everybody, you couldn't in World War II walk around and go, oh God, don't talk to me, there's a war on. It's like, well, the war's on for all of us. It's a bit what it was like, every business got hurt and damaged. Obviously, yes. If you were older and you had more reserves as a company, more established, you could mitigate those effects a bit more. When you're a new company starting out with all this great stuff, it was horrid for us.
Right.
But we came through. Michelin supported us still. It really was a success. Michelin aren't paying for much this year. They've got a different initiative going on because they've been affected business-wise, by tire production and stuff. But we host Pebble Beach. We're broadcast partners for that. We're probably doing one for some other events. We have a lot of Audrain Festival in Newport. We're very busy people. But, we're a real business, really trying to make it work. Smart guys doing our thing. And then I'm working with 20-year-old YouTubers or Instagram guys and girls who are buying Bugattis and shit and Ford GTs. And I'm going, what? How are you doing this? I mean, we struggle. Oh, we've got 150,000 followers, I think, on Facebook. It's taken us 3 years. They have millions. And,
right.
You go, and I'm sure you get frustrated too. You go, what? How did we miss this boat? But, which kind of leads me to, this new podcast I just launched. Because I knew you were about to ask me about that. Okay.
You have a podcast?
It's just launching right now.
Well, to the big guys like us, we don't notice. I do have 1,300 subscribers, for God's sake.
Well, I'll tell you what happens. Shouldn't be quaking in your boots. Mine's a very different thing. In a way, they're all conversations, right? We're all just talking with people. Mine is the fact, like sitting with Dad and Jackie X at LeMans at Friday night at dinner. They're just chatting. I'm hearing them talk. I'm going, I need to take these conversations down.
Yes.
Because I'm one of them. They talk to me different. Mine are very much conversations. It's tying it in with my portrait photography. I use Leica cameras. I love it. I've decided, Jeff, I'm doing it on Patreon because, as you know, actually Adam Carolla, talk about the other end of the scale from us. Adam and his guy Matt said, Tommy and I were on his show, not CarCast, not a couple of months, three or 4 months ago. And I was telling him I had an idea for a show, and they're like, it's very hard to cut through the noise as a podcast. It really is. And you should look at Patreon. So for me, I have a niche audience. If I'd be happy to get to 1,000 people. I literally launched it this week. So,
1,000 on Patreon would be great.
It would be great, right? It would wash its face at that point. But you know what? None of this is easy. You really have to do it as you are. You love it. Hope it turns into something. You make great conversation with great guests, and that's what it's about.
Well, I mean, look, to me, it's like, if it ever paid, terrific. And I want it to, don't get me wrong. Because God knows the hours I'm doing everything, with an editor, it's hours and hours. But I will tell you that, for example, what it's done for the enhancement of my life, like just being able to have this visit with you, is a wonderful visit for me. Life enhancing,
right? You're creating memories. You're creating an archive of great conversations.
And what you can do is, especially with your dad and some of the connections, to me, it's very legacy. Someday these people are going to be gone. I even think about it, JB, that when I do these, I think about someday I'll be gone, and I'll stumble across the photo album once in a while, or stumble, see my dad or see relatives. And when I'm gone, my sons might go to this, and daughter might go to this YouTube channel and just watch them all over a year or two. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? And it's a beautiful thing. And it's, let's just say, while you've done really well, I mean, all of us in the car business, in the annals of history and time, they don't talk about car dealers too much, and people, you know what I mean? They're not going to write war songs about you, like most of us. They're not. We don't get written about. But if you create content that is memorable, it's going to be around for the rest of the time. And I think that is the beauty of what we're all doing. So I'm a big fan. So the show's called Life with Legends. I'm taking portraits, which are going to go on a website called Life with Legends, limited edition, make them kind of quite expensive and signed by everybody. And I just like it. I can't focus on it as much as I'd like to, because I need to make a living doing everything else, but I'm passionate about it. And, I did Dad and Stephanie Hansen. I got Brian Redmond, David Hobbs, Alan Cadenet, and Hurley Haywood next month. So, some really good hitters. And like you, chat away. Yeah.
With hitters like that, you really have to do it. I appreciate the time that we had together. And I didn't know you, but I had a thought about how you might be. And really, you are what I thought, because you come from such a terrific family. I really, really believe that.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.